Up until quite recently, I had just assumed that the old rustic bridge by the mill was written by this man, Thomas Patrick Keenan, pictured here back in 1923. Keenan was a comedian and singer who toured Ireland in the 1880s with a group known as the Bohemian Minstrels. He died of pneumonia in 1927 in County Cork. A plaque on the local bridge confidently claims that Keenan was the composer of the old rustic bridge by the mill. But assumptions can sometimes be dangerous things, especially when verified by what my friend fondly describes as "dinternet." I have since discovered that the song was in fact written by Joseph Paul Skelly. There are very few images of Skelly, except this one, sketched by a courtroom artist when Skelly appeared in a copyright claim case in New York in 1892. Born of Irish parentage in New York in 1853, Joe Skelly started to write songs at the tender age of 15. A plumber by trade, when aged 24, he decided to try his hand at a totally different job, a professional balladeer. Having spent months pitching his mostly comic songs to Tin Pan Alley publishers, he met with Frank Harding, a wheeling, dealing copywriter and song hawker based at 229 Bowery, New York. Seeing potential in the former plumber's material, Harding bought a few of Skelly's songs, most notably Fifth Avenue George, a satirical ditty inspired by Man About Town George Hart. Published in 1875 by Louis Goulaud from Boston, the song was an overnight success, largely due to the efforts of Harding's entertainer friend, Tony Pastor. Skelly composed a catalogue of similarly styled songs, and in 1877 he had another major hit with My Pretty Red Rose. But as he soon discovered, the sycophantic underworld of Tin Pan Alley was a fickle one, far removed from welding pipes and securing taps to sinks. Publishers, copywriters and agents, many of whom considered songwriters to be only as good as their last successful song, exerted pressure on Skelly to deliver the next big hit or face sure unemployment. If truth be told, Skelly was quickly turning into a character from a maudlin country and western song, much to the disappointment of his mother and of his only sibling, a sister. He soon developed a dependence on alcohol and often sold his songs for a pittance in order to fund the next drinking spree, sometimes in the company of heavyweight boxer John L. Sullivan. Not surprisingly, he was no stranger to the staff employed at the various drying out clinics, like in Bellevue Hospital, Manhattan, or the Charity Hospital in Blackwell's Island, or St. Francis Hospital, East 5th Street. The death of his mother only served to compound his misery, yet it evidently inspired him to write 3 reasonably successful hits, namely, Why Did They Dig Ma's Grave So Deep?, A Boy's Best Friend Is His Mother, and Mother Has Always a Welcome for You. It is estimated that he wrote upwards of 400 songs, but his biggest hit, what he described as his masterpiece, was the old rustic bridge by the mill, a dewy-eyed lyric wedded to a memorable melody. First published in 1881 by Spears and Denoff of New York, the sheet music sold in its thousands in America and was subsequently bought by publishers in England and in Australia. The song reached Ireland about a decade later, the Cork Daily Herald reporting that on the 8th of February 1891, it was sung by a Master Heffernan at a concert held in the League of the Cross Hall in Cork City. Soon after, the the song was regularly performed at concerts in Derry, Drogheda, Dublin and Belfast. Joe Skelly quickly found himself in a catch-22 situation. The more successful he became, the greater was his reliance on liquor, particularly rum. Not surprisingly, the drink finally got the better of him. He died on the 23rd of June, 1895. A few days later, the New York Sun published an obituary, a no-holds-barred critique and celebration of his life. The 42-year-old songwriter died a few days ago, said the Sun, and was given the last rites at St. Francis's Hospital. None of his relatives, and not even an intimate friend, was present. Skelly died a poor man, and his body was saved from the potter's field by his only relative, a sister who lived in the city. When she heard of the death, she went to the hospital and made arrangements for the burial. The funeral was held a few days later. There was only one mourner, Skelly's sister. The old rustic bridge by the mill was recorded in 1909 on an Edison Amberol wax cylinder by the Australian bass baritone Peter Dawson, who duetted with the English tenor Ernest Pike. In her book, Michael Collins and the Women in His Life, Meada Ryan relates an interesting story of how Collins made good his escape from British Crown forces while visiting the Dublin home of his piano-playing friend, Madeline Dicker. As the auxiliaries marauded around the house, Meada says, Collins had already secreted himself in a little hideaway in the attic, and all this to the gentle background strains of Madeline playing The Old Rustic Bridge by the Mill. Though the song has been recorded by hundreds of artists, it might be good to end our little background of the story behind the Old Rustic Bridge with the old wax cylinder recording of Peter Dawson duetting with Ernest Pike.